What happens when the very people trusted to fight corruption and crime are themselves accused of being too close to the underworld? What happens when the finger of suspicion points not just at police generals, not just at provincial commissioners, but at a former minister of police himself? That is the question now gripping South Africa, after Parliament's explosive ad hoc committee investigating police interference and corruption made the dramatic decision to summon none other than Bheki. Yes, the former police minister, long a controversial figure, is now being asked to answer tough questions about his alleged links to one of the country's most notorious accused crime kingpins. This decision comes at a time when South Africans are already losing faith in the police service, rocked by constant scandals, political infighting, and allegations that some in uniform are working hand in glove with criminals. Now, with Bheki added to the witness list, the inquiry takes on a whole new level of drama. It all began with a damning exposé by News 24. The investigation revealed that in May this year, Bheki allegedly phoned Vuzimuzi Ket Matlala, a man accused of being a dangerous crime boss, not once, not twice, but 10 times in a single day. Think about that for a moment. 10 calls in one day. What could a former minister of police possibly have to discuss with someone facing such serious allegations? That is the question MPs now want answered under oath. The committee, chaired by Soviet Lekhanyan, had already planned to move fast after adopting its terms of reference last month. The first material witness scheduled to testify is KwaZulu-Natal's Provincial Commissioner, Nanlam Honotsi. He is expected to shed light on internal sabotage, political interference, and how corrupt networks within the police may be undermining investigations into powerful criminal syndicates. But after the shocking revelations about Bheki, MPs agreed it would be a mistake to leave him out. Committee member Ian Cameron, known for his outspoken stance against police incompetence and corruption, didn't mince his words. He argued that Bheki's alleged connection to Matlala was not just relevant, but critical. Even more critical after the expose last week regarding Bheki that allegedly called Matlala 10 times in a day in May. I think that's very relevant for the first set of people to be called to the committee, Cameron said. For South Africans, this is more than just political theatre. This is about trust. Bheki was the face of policing in South Africa for years. As National Commissioner under Jacob Zuma and later as Minister of Police under Cyril Ramaphosa, Bheki often styled himself as the tough-talking cop, the man in the cowboy hat who was not afraid to shoot from the hip in more ways than one. He was famous for his fiery rhetoric, for telling criminals they would be met with fire. But behind the bluster, critics long accused him of being more interested in showmanship than results, and of turning a blind eye to the rot festering in the police service. Now, with Parliament demanding his testimony, the country will have the rare chance to see whether Bheki can explain himself when the spotlight is turned back on him. The allegations are damning. Vuzimuzi Ket Matlala is not just any random suspect. He has been described as a powerful figure in organized crime, with networks that stretch across provinces. If a former minister of police really did have repeated, direct contact with him, it could suggest a level of political protection that goes right to the top. This is precisely why the ad hoc committee was formed in the first place. For years, whispers of interference in police work have circulated. Investigations into political killings in KwaZulu-Natal, into the so-called construction mafia, into cash-in-transit robberies, and into extortion rackets have all been plagued by allegations that suspects are being tipped off or protected by insiders. Even the Independent Police Investigative Directorate, IPID, has complained that its work is being blocked by political meddling. The committee's terms of reference are broad, to uncover and confront how corruption and interference are crippling the SAPS. But by moving so quickly to summon big names like Mhonotsi and Bheki, MPs are signaling that they are not afraid to take on sacred cows. 5 of the witnesses already invited have confirmed they are ready to testify. That alone suggests that the hearings could produce explosive evidence in the weeks to come. For Bheki, this is more than just a political inconvenience. It is a direct threat to his legacy. Bheki has survived scandal before. In 2011, he was fired as National Commissioner after the Public Protector found he had acted dishonestly in a dodgy R500 million lease deal for police headquarters. Even then, he managed to stage a political comeback, returning as Minister of Police in 2018 under Ramaphosa. Throughout it all, he managed to cultivate the image of the people's cop, always at crime scenes, always vocal, always in the media. But this is different. Allegations of being in close contact with a suspected underworld boss could prove devastating. It raises questions not only about Bheki's judgment, but also about how deep the connections between politics and organized crime really go. And here is the bigger issue: what happens if the committee finds that Bheki did, in fact, maintain inappropriate contact with figures like Matlola? Will it simply end with a scathing report? Or will it trigger a broader reckoning, one that forces South Africa to confront the uncomfortable truth that criminal syndicates are not just fighting the state, but are entangled with it at the highest levels? For South Africans living in fear of violent crime every day, these hearings cannot come soon enough. Communities in KwaZulu-Natal, Gauteng, and elsewhere have long spoken about how criminal networks seem untouchable, how gangsters boast of political protection, and how cases against powerful figures mysteriously collapse. If Parliament is serious, then perhaps this time, the truth will finally be dragged into the open. But make no mistake, the stakes are high. Witnesses who testify will be putting themselves at risk. The networks under investigation are not petty thieves, they are sophisticated, wealthy, and dangerous. For the committee to succeed, it will need not only political will, but also the protection of those brave enough to speak. So now, all eyes turn to the hearings. Nlandla Mkhwanatsi will go first, offering what many expect to be an explosive account of interference and obstruction in KZN. After him, Bheki will face the fire, forced to answer why, as a former minister and senior ANC figure, he was in direct contact with an accused crime boss. Was it innocent? Was it political? Or was it something far more sinister? Whatever the answer, one thing is clear: this is a moment of truth for policing in South Africa. For too long, the line between cop and criminal has been blurred. If Parliament's ad hoc committee can expose the truth, it may not only tarnish reputations, but also open the door to the long, painful process of cleaning up a police service that has lost the trust of its people. And for Bheki, the man once feared, once admired, once the symbol of toughness, the question is whether his name will be remembered as the man who stood for the people, or the man who stood too close to the underworld.